So I just recently posted a video on the DJI Osmo Action 3, and inevitably the question I got asked most was, all right, great, but how does it compare to the GoPro Hero 11 that was just released alongside it? Well, you know, on paper it kind of seems like the GoPro wipes the floor with the Action 3, but the more you look into it, there's actually a fair case for both of these cameras. So I have both, you're looking at them now. Let's go through it and see which one is actually worth buying. So here it is, the GoPro Hero 11, and it looks like, well, every other GoPro because the form factor has not changed from the Hero 10. And that's a good thing. This is a tried and true form factor. And it's also very similar to what the Action 3 has, and in a lot of ways you could thank the Action 3 for what the GoPro has, and that's that front screen. With the original Osmo Action, DJI added this front screen, and it is still one of the best features for these action cams. And even now, it is a touchscreen on the Action where it isn't on the Hero 11, and that alone is one major feature advantage. But other than that, these are very similar. The screens on the back are slightly different sizes, but not really enough to notice. The GoPro is slightly bigger, but again, not enough to really notice. They both have very similar shaped and similar sized batteries, which I'll talk about more in a second. And they both have buttons in basically the same place, although the QS quick switch button on the Action is a nice feature to have. You do have something similar on the Hero, but I like having just a dedicated button. You just click it and it just works to switch between your different modes. So yes, there are differences with this camera on first glance, but really not that much. They're both really well designed. But one area that I have just fallen in love with the Action is the mounting system. So GoPro has these prongs, which they basically pioneered in the system, and almost every single accessory for action cameras uses this at this point. But what the Action is doing is using this magnetic clip system. Now there is one disadvantage to this, and it's that you need to have this DJI proprietary magnet clip thing in order to attach it to any other accessory. But on the other hand, assuming you do have it, this system is unbeatable. It's so much easier to clip on the camera and take it off from different accessories, and that is a game changer. So I think for those few reasons, for the Action side, I definitely prefer the hardware on this. It's a little smaller, a little bit more compact, but is packing a little bit more features and hardware. But then we need to talk about quality. I'll just say right off the bat, both of these cameras produce excellent images. If you are comparing them, then that's when things look a little different, but if you just have one or the other, I think you're gonna be happy with both. Now, the obvious difference here is that the GoPro has an 8x7 sensor, whereas you only have 4x3 on the Osmo Action 3. And really what that 8x7 means is that you can film in almost a square and reposition after the fact a little better. It's 5.3K, so it's a little higher than the 4K of the Osmo Action 3. And one of the benefits of the 8x7 is that if I wanted to after the fact, I could kind of crop it into a vertical, or I can go horizontal, just depending on what I needed. And it's easier to do it with that more square format. And with the Osmo, if you have the cage, you can actually mount it vertically. So if you want vertical videos, it's still very easy to do. You just don't have quite as much flexibility. Now, the other big thing is 10-bit recording. Now, the Action 3 doesn't have it right now, but DJI does say it will be coming. The GoPro, on the other hand, does have it right now, and that's what you're looking at. So if you look behind me and look into the sky, especially when we're pointing into the sun, you should be able to see a difference. Now, in this kind of normal recording, everything's in the normal settings, it won't be quite as big. Now, where I think you will notice a difference with 10-bit is when you're in the flat profile, which is what you're seeing now. So I'm flat on the GoPro and decent alike on the Osmo Action 3. And when I'm in a situation like this, I'm gonna have to kind of push colors around. I'm in the shadow and I have a bright sky with the sun behind me. So there's a lot of adjustments I'm going to have to do. And having that more color information means the image overall is going to look better in the end. And there is most certainly a noticeable difference, but I'm very hopeful that DJI will bring that 10-bit. They've already promised it, and they've done it on other cameras as well. So I think that's gonna be coming, and once it does, that's gonna be a big win for the Action 3. When it comes to the look in auto mode, both of these cameras just have a little difference in how they process things. It seems like the GoPro is trying to go for that little bit more flat, more natural look, whereas the Action 3 likes to punch it up a little bit. There's more contrast, it's a little bit more punchy and almost like it's colored already rather than you having to do it in post, which for the normal modes I think works fine. But there definitely is a difference, and it really just depends which one you prefer. But like I said, image quality on both of these cameras is great, and you're gonna be, I think, happy with either one of them. And it really just has to decide, like, do you want a camera that pushes the limits to the furthest that it can in a camera form factor like this, or do you want something that's really solid and reliable? The Action 3 is that camera. It's not going to overheat on you, it's not going to have any issues, but it only goes up to 4K 120, whereas the GoPro pushes it, so you get that 5.3K, that 8x7 sensor, but it's definitely pushing the limits of what a small camera like this can do. So you just have to, you know, give and take depending on what you need. Now for that quality, the GoPro Hero 11 does not have great battery life. The Action 3 on the other hand has really touted the battery life, and I'd say in my use case using both cameras, the Action 3 kind of kills the GoPro Hero 11 when it comes to battery life, and that's just in normal use cases. If you're going in heat or if you're going in extreme cold, that's one thing DJI has really touted about this camera, is that it's going to survive more. The Action 3 is the camera you want if you are looking for battery life. Another thing to consider with this camera is sound quality. I'm using the DJI wireless mic right now just because it sounds better and it's a little windy. But now you are hearing the GoPro Hero 11 and what that sounds like. And now you are hearing what the DJI Osmo Action 3 sounds like about 1.5 feet, 2 feet away from my face as I walk. None of these microphones sound that great. I mean, they're fine, but if you get a lot of wind or anything like that, both of them are going to distort pretty similarly. And really, if you want good audio, just plug a different mic into it or use something like what I'm using now. Now, stabilization is one area that I find very important for a camera like this, and both of these do really well. I mean, we're in a pretty bumpy road here. The camera's kind of going all over the place, but it should be handling the micro jitters and everything very well on both cameras. So we have Rock Steady 3.0 on the Osmo Action 3, and we have Hyper Smooth on the Hero 11. And we're to the point now where like the thought of a gimbal for one of these cameras doesn't even make any sense. Like, what's the point? It's good enough. The stabilization on both of these is excellent. Okay, with all that being said, it seems like the GoPro Hero 11 has a leg up on the Action 3, and I think in a lot of ways that is true. But one way where it doesn't is price, and that's where things really start to get interesting. The Hero 11 costs $499, where the Action 3 costs $329. So, is this worth $170 more? Well, that is a question you are just going to have to answer yourself. There are certainly features of the GoPro that you can't get anywhere else, but that is a lot of money in difference compared between these cameras. And you're basically getting the same, let's say, ecosystem or type of camera. They're both this square form factor. They both attach to the same kind of accessories. The cameras aren't that different. It really just depends is if that quality, if that sensor size is worth the extra money. And I'd say for most people, it probably isn't. If you're not comparing the cameras directly on the same monitor, you'll be hard pressed to notice what camera filmed what. And really it just depends what you're using the camera for and what you want out of a camera like this. Both of these cameras live in an action camera market that has not changed very much in the last few years. So now that you've seen both of these cameras head to head, which one would you choose?